How's it going, everybody? Chris Worthing, hands up, chin down. I'm back. I just watched Anthony Joshua, Alexander Usyk, and I want to break it down. Usyk is technically and fundamentally levels above that guy. Okay, first of all, what we're talking about here is southpaw versus right hand. So the front hand is on the same side as your opponent. Okay, what Usyk was able to do in the first couple rounds was really occupy that front hand. And that's a strategy that a lot of coaches don't really teach, but it's very effective. To use the front hand, and all you have to do is you have to have the range established in order to do this, but when you do, it works very well because you're able to occupy that front hand. All right, a lot of jabs to that front side. So, my wife's interrupting me. But anyway, the front hand, occupy that front hand. So he's peppering it. And he's not throwing the jab to necessarily hit him with it. He's throwing it to distract that front hand. When you do that, lead right or lead left from the southpaw stance, lead left will land, and it's going to open up the lead hook. Okay, but another thing Usyk is doing is he's moving his head real well. He's changing levels. He's consistently moving, and he's able to punch going backwards. He's able to pull. He's able to check hook. Check hook and move. The head's always moving. So he's creating much less of a target for Joshua than Joshua was doing to him. Joshua fought well. He did fight a good fight. I think he lost it in the last couple of rounds when he just got overwhelmed. But he's never learned a lot of alternate defenses and ways to change range because he's an Olympic gold medalist and he's been able to control guys with his size, his height, and his natural athleticism. And he never had to learn it, and that happens a lot. It took me a while to learn how to move my head and learn how to change range and make guys miss because I was so successful for so long, just being long and tall and getting guys out of there a lot of times. So what happens is you don't learn the skills that you need at the top level. Once you get to the top level, you're not going to knock everybody out. You're not going to overwhelm guys, and they're going to do things that are going to offset you. So that's what happened in this fight. All the movement and the feints. The feints really set the pace because what a feint does is it makes you react. Okay, if you're reacting to the feint, it puts you on defense. So once you feint a guy, put him on defense and stay behind the jab, once you freeze him here, you get to open up with your combination. Usyk did that all night long. Joshua had his moments because he was able to, kind of do the same thing, and Usyk got away from his jab. And at the same time, Joshua was able to punch, land his jab, and, he gave him and follow up with the right hand. Southpaw versus right-hander, you're going to see a lot of jab right hands. The hook comes into play once you disrupt that front hand. Okay, that front hand has to get disrupted. Okay, Joshua, he doesn't have the basic defense for fighting southpaw. Okay, he doesn't know how to use that front hand to catch and then dip. Okay, the way I teach it is catch and dip and roll. Catch, dip, roll. Okay, so that jab does not occupy you. That jab, even though it's at the hand, you don't even have to throw it to land it. You just keep peppering it, and it occupies him. So at some point, the combination comes. And you can't get out of the way because he's already closed the gap on you. And there's not enough room for you to slip and get out of the way. A lot of times what guys do once the jab starts overwhelming them is they pull straight back. Now, when you pull back, you have to pull back in a position to where you can bend your knees. Change levels. Circle out. Okay, turn. Pull and punch. Check hook. Pull and jab. Okay, there's all these different tools that Joshua hasn't used especially against a southpaw. Southpaws are hard for everybody. Okay, so southpaw, and the simple reason for that is they see right-handers a lot more than right-handers see them. So, it's kind of like facing a left-handed pitcher. You don't see them a lot, so everything's opposite. Okay, the curveball curves the other way, the fastball tails the other way, and everything comes from the other side. So you have to make the adjustments. There's a lot of there are a lot of adjustments that have to be made for a southpaw. Yeah, the strategy may not change, but there's specific things that do have to. There's specific adjustments that have to be made. Okay, like his left hand's coming from the other side, or his rear hand. So his rear hand, left hand, I have to get here, or I have to get under it. These are basic concepts. The jab comes from the front side, from your front side now, as opposed to a right-hander throwing over here when I'm catching, dipping, catching, block the hook. Okay, I have to do all that with this hand now. Usyk was able to do it. Joshua was not. I mean, Usyk sees right-handers all the time because he's a southpaw. So that's one advantage him. But he also moves his head, he changes his level, and he's able to change the range. When a guy's changing range on you, it makes you less confident to throw the jab because he's moving so much that, you realize that a counter, you don't want to get hit with a counter punch, with a hard counter shot. So you have to readjust. You have to circle out. You have to establish a larger gap. Okay, once you establish that gap, and you got to be able to bend your knees. Joshua does not bend his knees. He doesn't get in a position to where, I don't care if you're a big guy. Okay, there's a lot of coaches that teach these big guys to stand tall. I've always been against that. Okay, there's times I stand tall, but there's times where you have to get in position and you have to know how to use your legs to fight. Even when you're a big guy. When you're a big guy, it makes you that much more effective. So, Joshua, the things that Joshua doesn't know how to do caused him to lose, caused him problems that he couldn't find the counter to, or find the adaptation to adapt and overcome. So, yeah, you stay long. You have to spread that gap out, and you feint your way into position. You touch, you feel, but you're not committing with that front hand. You're putting it out there to distract and to occupy his front hand. You're not throwing it always to land it, okay? Once you pepper it a few times, the opportunity to land that jab is going to come, okay? You're going to occupy the hand, bam, then you step to it, okay? Or you occupy it and you hook. But the whole time while that's going on, the range is changing because he's moving out, okay? The way that you don't allow what Usyk did to happen is you have to be able to pull back and reestablish range, all right? So if he's peppering me with a jab, with a southpaw jab on the front hand, I don't want to stand there and let him do it. Joshua stood in the pocket and tried to fire off of it. Well, if he's dictating the pace and he's dictating the range, he's also going to dictate when he lands his power shots, and he's going to back you up and make you react to him. That shouldn't be the strategy. Joshua should circle it out, start again, establish a bigger gap. Now you're making Usyk react to you, and you get to set the pace, and you take control of the fight. It's called ring generalship. It's taking control of the action, taking control of the range, and taking control of what your opponent does. Floyd Mayweather was the best at it. And there's a lot of counters that I saw in that fight that didn't happen just because these guys don't practice these moves, obviously, a lot. One of them being to fall in with the rear hand, like a southpaw versus orthodox. Okay, when your guy misses, or he misses a jab, he misses a left hand, you fall in with your rear hand. Okay, Manny Pacquiao did that better than anybody I've ever seen. He used to catch guys falling in, coming back with the hook. I mean, he was incredible at it, but I don't see a lot of these guys really practicing that move. It's more of an advanced move, and it takes time to learn, and it takes a lot of practice to get comfortable falling in on a guy's miss. And you have to time the punch well to do it. Usyk, didn't want to get hit, but Usyk boxed brilliantly. He didn't want to take all his shots. So he didn't take the risk to try to fall in on something. He could have really hurt Joshua had he picked one of those punches, slipped, and fell in with an overhand left. Joshua would have walked right into it because he's there for the taking. He's putting himself at the end of your punches. He's not able to change the range. He's not pulling out, he's not circling, and he's not establishing the range. Usyk established the range because he peppered that jab and he overwhelmed Joshua early in the fight. And once Joshua was overwhelmed with that jab, he didn't pull out of range to change the range. He just started firing his jab, trying to fire over it, which is fine, but that can't be your only attack. You got to fire over it, but you also have to make him miss at times. So you switch up your defense so that he doesn't know what you're going to do each time. If he knows what you're going to do, all he's going to do is make you do it and then counter it. So he makes him throw the right hand, make the right hand miss, and he's in position for his combination and to land hard shots. That's what we saw. We saw Usyk overwhelm Joshua with his boxing ability for the most part, his ability to move, his ability to change range, and Joshua's lack thereof. It was a close fight. It was close. I think Usyk definitely won. I'm looking forward to seeing Usyk later on. Maybe a rematch. It sounds like they're going to do a rematch, and they should. It's a fight Joshua could win, but it doesn't mean he will win. It's a fight Usyk could win. It doesn't mean he will. It's going to go to the guy who takes this fight and better applies their strategy to take down whatever their opponent's doing on the night of the fight. So, Tyson Fury's still waiting. Tyson Fury, I think, beats either one of them just because he does know how to change range. He knows how to spread the fight out. He'll spread that gap out and make Usyk reach for those punches instead of just allowing him to occupy that front hand and put him at the end of his shots so easily. But that's my take on it. Thumbs up to Usyk. He fought a great fight. There's a lot going on in that fight. There's a lot of those guys both. They implemented and they were able to make changes during the fight, and they did well. They both fought well, but Joshua is definitely lacking on some fundamental things that smaller guys actually learn. They have to learn. When you're big like that and you control guys with your jab, a lot of times, kind of like Vladimir Klitschko, you don't learn a lot of the finer movements and finer tactics to throw a guy off and to make him make mistakes and put him at the end of your punches. Vladimir had a lot of problems like that. I see a lot of similarities in him and Joshua. Very talented, very good, very powerful, but not a lot of ring generalship and a lot of ability to control range, to change levels, make guys miss, and put them in a defensive position. So there's always things to learn, but I don't know if at this stage of your career you can learn something like that. So Usyk probably beats him again, maybe even worse if they do it again, unless Joshua can figure out his range and keep that guy at the end of his jab, without closing in too much to fall into counters. A lot of stuff went on that night. It was a fun night. Sorry I'm getting this kind of late. I haven't watched. It took me a couple weeks to watch a fight because I've been so busy with kids and life and, studying my Bible and everything else. But thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys keep watching. Chris Worsley, hands up, chin down.